Any public comments? I've got a sign-in sheet. I know we probably don't have any public here regarding it, but we do have a sign-in sheet. We'll probably, moving forward, limit 5 or 6 comments during this time frame moving forward and limit them to about 2 minutes. So we do have identification on our sign-in sheet for name, address, phone, email, and any concerns or issues that they may want to raise or address to the board issue. So we do have that in place. Any comments from the board members or disclosures? Recognizing that we don't have a quorum tonight, formally cancel our meeting as far as any issues that we need to address as far as making votes, adopting anything and things of that nature, but we will continue as a work session and a training session with the presentations that we have moving forward. Previous meeting minutes are a part of our binders here that I gave you guys. Under the assumption right now too, without a quorum, probably can't move to formally adopt those and approve those, so we'll push those to our next meeting. Executive Director updates. Your first tab back there, I took the liberty to put these binders together for the board and a few other key members of our team within Department of General Services. Apologize for burning too many trees, but a little bit old school, but wanted to make sure you guys had some of the pertinent information regarding our presentations. And then in the very back, as we move through the presentations tonight, put together this qualifications and clarifications document that I've been meaning to mention to you, you know, as far as a fact sheet, if you will, that kind of outlines some of our Metro Court ordinances, the functions of the board, things of that nature that would be good reference tools that we can refer to as we're in meetings, and things that you guys can study as well on the side to be ready for our future meetings moving forward. Director update, again, diving into the report you have there in front of you. After extensive review this past 30, 60 days, we've been looking at several reporting platforms, and staff is recommending the safetyreports.com for our safety tracking and reporting. Again, our phase 1 implementation includes general services teams for our implementation here starting actually next week. We did secure this platform. It's been vetted by ITNS, and be putting that in place with some of our training time frames here actually this week and tomorrow. Again, as we move through our MOU with the Metro Public Schools, that would probably be our phase 2, moving into encompassing those projects and others moving forward. If you guys are interested in looking at cost comparisons in the other 12 platforms that we looked at and vetted, I can forward that to you. Again, I think I mentioned you guys individually too. We've adopted this for our tool for reporting to you guys, a really good dashboard for all of our safety initiatives, which will have our KPIs and everything that we want to track and monitor on our sites. Quick project highlights there under number 2. Our current safety on sites includes a new juvenile justice center. To date, Bell Construction, we've had 0 incidents in over 258 days to date. Metro Police Department Southeast Precinct, our American Constructors out there, is wrapping up here this next week to 10 days or so. That project has been very successful so far with 0 accidents or incidents, tracking over 409 days. And then we can equate those to over 98,000 man hours on that particular site. Another project snapshot, the Metro Police Department horse barn facility with TW Frierson. Again, they track the man hours out there, and we've had 0 accidents and incidents, so in over 65,000 man hours to date. Complaints or contract issues. Currently, we don't have any complaints related to any safety or contract issues regarding our Department of General Service projects. And again, we'll have some updates on some compliance and things that we monitor from our BAO and procurement team here shortly. Board question, are there any issues or complaints that we do need to address? None? Board briefing, topic of the month, again, just another blurb here that I put forth. Again, this fact sheet and our qualifications document that I'm going to start to build out is in the back of this particular binder for future reference. And the last section there will start getting into our safety language that we're currently drafting for you guys to review and dialogue over for our contracts moving forward here for our October meeting. I'll get that to you guys for comments and stuff to where we can move through that meeting as well and have that ahead of time. Board leadership, again, this is something that we need to do tonight due to the quorum issue. We were going to try to establish and nominate the complaints subcommittee that we were going to investigate. We do have Ann, Chairman Fabian, and Councilmember Sepulveda currently volunteered. We could move forward with that, but we'd really like to have an additional member for that complaint committee. But again, we'll put that again on the October agenda for those nominations and moving that forward. Policy recommendations by resolution, again, documentation's in your binders there. We did extend our deadline on any recommendations for the functions of this board with council pushed out to that January date at Councilmember Sepulveda's recommendation, so that got passed on consent agenda last Tuesday. Documentation's in here too, just for the wording and the dates for you guys. Again, moving through our next meetings here, this balance of this fourth quarter, we'll need to get that stuff drafted so we can meet those deadlines and get the recommendations to council here first of the year is our goal. Contract safety language, again, I don't have that example in there for reviewing, or I have our existing safety language in here for review. As we draft additional things, we'll have that forthcoming again for our October meeting. Again, performance criteria and our KPIs. Again, we've had a couple questions of what KPIs are for everyone. It's, you know, key performance indicators. Again, it's what's our targets, what's our things that we want to measure and things of that nature. Again, urge the board to, as we move down through the safety things, you know, what do you want to track? You know, there's a lot of different things that we've talked about so far. You know, okay, how many toolbox talks has the general contractor or sub had per month, per week? You know, percents and numbers, you know, the snapshots that we take when we do site inspections involving accidents, what their accident rates are, stand downs, inspection scores. One of the things is we move through the safetyreports.com platform. We'll be able to show you all these statistics as we do these inspections moving forward and what those statistics and how our performance shows on a big picture.
Trey, can I make a comment on the KPIs? So my experience is that when projects start to experience delays, that's when corners start getting cut, the pressure builds, and you sort of increase your opportunities for safety issues and things like that. At least that's my experience. And so that may be one of the considerations, just simply is the project on time, right? And I don't see that listed here. I just want to make a note of that.
Sure. I mean, if there's things you all want to track and see the statistics and our measurements on, we can add that. Obviously, with delays, schedule starts to get compressed. Okay, go faster. Yeah, it's one of the variables. Next steps, again, more board training opportunities involving Metro's policies and procedures. Right now, I'm trying to get Tosha in for a presentation for our October meeting, so we'll learn more about how we can partner with state level and Tosha office here and involve. I think we are currently involved in some of their STEP programs where our HR safety brings them in on an annual basis to look at a particular facility. With those type checklists. They're outside of construction realm, but I'm looking at possibly having them in for some training for you guys as well, unless you think otherwise. Other notes, again, we're looking to probably start recruiting for an admin role for this little department here, probably this fourth quarter to possibly start first of the year as we move through safety reports and more document control and administrative type duties that we need support on. let's see, council extended dates and the safety reports, that was the main thing too on my updates. Matt on subcommittee updates. Bylaws status, I think we know, or probably could voice for the members here.
Yeah,
Council member.
Yeah, I think before we jump into that, Councilwoman,
Yes, sorry, I had some notes on the KPIs. So worker trainings on site, I think it would be good to have companies' most recent trainings, but with verified proof, right? So when we're asking them how many trainings have they had, are we just getting the numbers from them, or do they have their workers like sign a sheet?
Couple examples, like Bell Construction, they use a different program similar to safety reports called HammerTech. I think I mentioned these to you guys before. TW Frierson, one of our other GCs, utilizes a program, eMod, for the same type tracking. They do have pre-built or canned, if you will, toolbox talks and training, things of that nature that they keep track of in the same type system. We can obtain them as well. My big picture for safetyreports.com is in order to move through these new projects upcoming, that we will require a safety coordinator that would be a part of inputting and doing the safety inspections on Metro's behalf. And then myself and our staff would be doing the audits, whether it's on a weekly basis or a monthly basis for the, checking on making sure they're doing what they're supposed to be doing from all the safety training, tracking all their incident rates, accident rates, and doing their scores as far as what our inspection lists show. So yes, that would be a part of the dashboard that you'll see that we'll be
Okay.
able to present.
Got it. And then I know that sometimes there are incidents that go unreported. And I know that depending on the severity of a specific incident, they do not always have to report that to OSHA. And then depending on the size of their workforce as well. Can we track that as well? Is there a way to track that?
I guess it's the whole thing, like, you don't know what you don't know. If it's something that's gone unreported and we're not aware of it, it's obviously going to be difficult. As we move through this safety initiative, obviously our general contractors are going to be partners with us. There's a certain amount of trust, responsibility, integrity, and things of that nature, and utilizing any type of reporting platform. But again, the auditing, the follow-up, and the compliance obviously is key to make sure that we're getting the same information and be able to stay on top of it. The more we partner with these general contractors, the more we would probably be able to notice that type thing and uncover those type things. But like I say, right now, if it's something that's unreported, then nobody says anything, but it's hard. It's difficult to track, no doubt.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe, is there, I guess going to our consultants, has there been other forms to be able to track these incidents that have gone unreported? It brings back to mind an incident that occurred several months ago on a private site, and there's hospital reports. At that point, we're ambulance chasers. So I don't know if there's other forms of tracking.
Yeah, there's quite, just for the record, Daniel Villar, Intelligent Partnerships. There's quite a few models, but the advantage is that the city has now purchased a safety tracking reporting system, and they can include in their procurement process a requirement for contractors to report 100% of the incidents, whether or not they're recordable with the state. They also have an opportunity, for example, if you have field enforcement safety officers that are on the project site, sometimes projects have, depending on their size, they'll have an assigned safety officer. That officer is typically capturing everything, even if you just get a paper cut and you have to get issued a Band-Aid, they'll capture everything. So there are mechanisms that you can put in place, especially now that you're gonna have a city-controlled reporting device. I think that, we just have to look at, in terms of policy-wise, what Trey's office would like to do in terms of capturing that data for this board to use.
Great, thank you.
Oh, but I think, back to Trey's initial point, if it's unreported, there's no sign of it being reported, so how do you track that statistic?
Right, so in our experience where we're active third-party administrators in other environments, we have field enforcement folks that are actually talking to workers or collaborating with, other worker representatives, et cetera, to make sure that those incidents are actually logged somewhere, or if they're not reported in writing formally, that awareness is being raised so that they can become recorded. But that takes active engagement with the work site.
Right.
If you're not there, you're 100% reliant on whatever the contractor's report.
May I ask a question? Are OSHA 300 logs kept on construction sites?
Yes.
Yes, and those are filed at the end of every year, right? So each incident isn't necessarily reported to OSHA, but it's kept in a log. And if we're actively auditing, that could be a spot where we could check and see, did somebody get a paper cut? Even, right, you're supposed to write like, oh, a worker said he felt a pain in his shoulder, right? That could be something that we could check on an ongoing basis and not wait until the very end of the year when they actually file those reports, right?
Sure. No, most of them have them posted, like for instance, with TW Frierson and Bell, both utilizing their HammerTech systems and eMods. They're in there, but OSHA does accept those documentations that they can download those reports out and forward them. The ones that aren't as savvy and don't have those type systems do have a manual 301 on the bulletin board with the posters and things of that nature for reporting. And again, I'm on the sites every week, if not at least a minimum every 2 weeks right now. And again, I've established the relationships, taken safety snapshots, which I've reported you guys previously on, and that's ongoing. Good on the director updates there. Moving to the subcommittee updates from the bylaws.
So we had our subcommittee meeting prior to this meeting. We reviewed some of the verbiage that legal made comments on. Those comments are going back to legal, so we plan to have another follow-up subcommittee meeting here in the next couple weeks prior to the next full board meeting.
Comments or anything there? If not, we'll move into a couple of the presentations we've got tonight. Good?
Can I make one comment about the upcoming board training opportunities before we move on? I think it would be great to hear from Tosha next month and figure out, how we can work together with them. One of the things that I feel like would be helpful for me, and I'm not sure, the process that we would do this, but one of the reasons that this board got created was there was a worker that died in a metro school, right? And I think it would be really helpful for just my understanding to be able to wrap my head around that case study. Like what happened in that specific instance that led to that worker dying? And how could a board like us proactively have prevented that? And I don't quite understand that yet, and I would really like to. So I don't know if it would be possible for us to kind of dig into what happened there.
We can investigate that further. I'm gonna try and probably get the BAO office guys going here, so give me a second. On these presentations too, I do have them printed out in y'all's binder too, just for quick reference if we need.
Procurement Data Officer Amber Gardner, as well as contract monitoring and compliance, which is led by myself, along with Christopher Wood. Contract compliance. Essentially, we're your equity and compliance partner in Metro Finance. Our program is established by BL 2018-1419. Compliance refers to the act of adhering to laws, regulations, and organizational policies, essentially meeting those M and WBE goals that we established with our roles for minority and women goals. We have, and within our office, we do compliance in the pre-award phase, which is our EBO documentation. That documentation is captured by our EBO checklist, our Equal Business Opportunity Program form, as well as our Statement of M and WBE Utilization form for good faith efforts. And we do this to make sure that those people bid or those vendors bidding on projects are compliant with our programming, as well as our reporting for our M and WBEs. And I'll show you what those forms look like on these next few slides. So here's what we consider our EBO form. On this form, there are two distinct parts. You have our statement of interested and notified M and WBE vendors, and that's where primes, they'll list those M and WBEs that they reached out to, who provide them with a quote. However, whatever information they request, they'll also enter that. This is required documentation. Failing to provide this information, we won't even consider your bid. You'll be deemed non-responsive. So again, it's very important for prime contractors to view this information because we're serious about our economic impact that we have and also getting the best value. So we don't want people to always go to who they know, but we want to make sure that they're reaching out to different vendors and diversifying their outreach. The statement of price and bid quotations, that's where they'll list those individuals that they reached out to. They may provide them with a cost for whatever reason. However, they say I can't utilize them because I can perform it at a lower rate, or I can self-perform it, or I found somebody at a cheaper price. So we want to make sure we have all of that documentation, or it's documented, or we confirm that information. And this is our M and WBE utilization form. This is where they list those minority and women-owned businesses that they plan to utilize over the life of the contract. And it's important to note that we don't allow people to self-certify or just say, hey, I'm a minority or I'm a woman-owned business. You have to go through one of our acceptable certified entities. They have to be recognized through Metro and our iSupplier system, as well as our BAO B2G now system. The top portion in red, that's the required information. You'll see bid information along with the solicitation number, their overall price quote, along with the amount they'll self-perform. And then again, they'll list the information of the work that they perform as far as the M and WBEs. And the BAO compliance staff will review this information. We'll compare all the pricing, the information in our R12 system, what's on their subcontractor and subconsultant form. We'll verify that those minority or women-owned businesses that they list have actual certifications that we recognize, because sometimes people will list, let's say, Jeremy Fry Enterprise, and I'll self-certify. But again, it's not recognized. We won't list it. We won't accept it. You won't be in compliance. So that part at the bottom, that's where the BAO listed information. We'll confirm. You'll see where it says for internal office use only. Good faith efforts. If they don't meet our M or WBE goal for whatever reason, we like to confirm that information. You want to make sure that they go through a few steps. So outreach is just one thing. So there might be a phone call, They may show up to our pre-offer meeting, but did you do that information in writing? Did you provide a rejection in writing? Did you access our database? So again, you can't rely on Jeremy Fry Enterprises unless you went through our database, utilized our system. Did you do unbundling? So when you looked at the solicitation, did you see all the areas where you had the potential to utilize subcontractors and subconsultants and not just try and keep it in one specific area and make it real specialized? Did you break it down to ensure that you can have a strong economic impact and be compliant with our MWBE goals? Earlier, I talked about one of our things that we do in the BAO office is goal setting and business development. So with that business development and goal setting, we're looking for those MWBEs, those small and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses to partner with Metro. So that's why that unbundling portion is important, as well as our goal setting. We look at all of the budget aspects for their specific bid, everywhere that they can have a specific UNSPSC code. We try and unbundle it to make sure we have reasonable subcontracting and sub-consulting. This is our LOI, letter of intent. It's not a contract. It's signed by the prime contractor and our subcontractors. And it's just what it is, a letter of intent. I intend to utilize this business. This is what we consider our first act of compliance. If you are awarded the contract for whatever reason, we ask for you to have this for all of your subcontractors that are a part of our EBO program. And this is where you'll list the specific work that you'll perform, dollar values, percentages, and it also allows for us, the BAO, when we do our contract compliance, we know that you have talked to that individual. You didn't just list them down on a piece of paper, and you're not just getting credit for whatever company that you're trying to utilize. So this is essential to our first act of compliance. We ask for all awarded vendors to provide this once they get that intent to award notification. Post-award monitoring. I talked about goal setting. I talked about business development and outreach. You're probably wondering, how do we do that? Trey talked about site visits. That's something that he does. But in a world of technology, we utilize our B2G Now system, which is our Nashville.diversitycompliance.com. And that system allows for our vendors, which are our prime contractors, as well as our subcontractors and consultants, to go in and list their monthly payments. We also have it where payments come in from Metro Nashville ITS monthly. So we pay that prime contractor. That information goes into our system. The prime contractor then knows to upload their payment for their MWSB ESDV. So all of that activity is being monitored into our system monthly and automatically for the prime contractor. However, the subcontractors and sub-consultants have to go in, upload that information. So that's council check, invoices, liens. And if we have an issue with that, we have way where they can do a discrepancy, and we, as the contract compliance office, we're able to go in, resolve that through different means, whether it's a contract, a call, email, or we might say, hey, we need some additional information based on what the subcontractor or sub-prime contractor initiated in our system. So right now we have a team of 5 individuals, but we have over 300 plus active contracts and counting. So we're not just tasked with the general services, but we do every metro department that has equal EBO programming. We're responsible for monitoring those contracts for utilization, and we have audits that come through. So if you look here, you can see right now we have over 18,000 audits. So that's for prime contractors and sub-consultants. In our team, we go in, we confirm that information monthly, and we check for discrepancies. You see, they can also request subcontractors, sub-consultants, and we have that ongoing. So it's always growing. We're closing and opening contracts as we get them. They're entered into our systems, and that's a manual process led by our compliance staff. And I'll just talk about a few common issues and some of the resolutions that we have within the BAO. So prime's not reporting. You can imagine, a lot of people just want to get the work done. However, a big part of compliance is reporting. So what we do in our office, we'll send a non-compliance letter out. We'll say, hey, you're not reporting. What's the issue? We'll send it out. We also have the ability to stop payment. We can bring Dennis in on if we need that to happen, because we know that it's important. We know the work is happening. We know the prime contractor is being paid. However, they may just fail to provide that information at whatever time. Late payments from the system. I said that it's automated, and automation for us means that it's a pushover it's a manual person pushing it over, but we hope to have that resolved with Metro Nashville moving to the cloud and the ITS system. So we have to reconcile that data monthly. We have to close and open contracts sometimes. A change in the scope of work. So I think that's a big important part. So that's why the BAO compliance staff, we have to develop that relationship with project managers, those primes and subs. If we notice for whatever reason in the system where utilization is down, we at a certain point in the contract, we have a means to have a liaison with contract. We talk to that person, we get documentation. The department will notify us, hey, we don't have to utilize this scope, or we decide to go with a change based on budget, or it needs to be paused for whatever reason. Vendor performance, we have performance improvement plans that we can implement. Sometimes a vendor may say, look, this person is not performing, they're not responsive, and we have to hold them accountable. And if you're not accountable, at what point do we then stop? We can let you be substituted for whatever reason. So those are just a few of the issues that we deal with, opposed to just a gambit of everything that we can. And on this next slide, I'll just introduce you into our team. I mentioned a few people, but here's a picture of our team. We're over at the Titan Stadium doing contract compliance, and this is what one of our site visits. So we got our procurement data officer, compliance staff, as well as our financial accountability officer for procurement, which is Camille and Sierra and Christopher. Angie, which are in the room. Over a lot of information really fast, but you all have the packet in front of you. So if you have any questions regarding anything that I talked about, feel free to ask me any questions, and if I can answer them, I'll do so. Are there any questions from the board? Yes.
Thank you for your presentation and your time. So I don't know if there would be a way, and I guess we could do this when we do the KPIs, but for construction contracts, when we define what a construction contract we will be looking at, how many non-compliant payments we have had within a period of time, and then how many late payments we have had. Because I think that would be important to track as far as metro projects go.
So you want a list of non-compliant vendors?
Correct.
Okay, so when we say non-compliant, you're talking about their monthly reporting, putting it in
Correct.
the system, and the non-payment piece, that essentially could be from our system. When I say non-payment, or are you talking about us imposing that on the prime as?
So I guess my second question is that the contractor, the main, or is it the subcontractor as well? Because you're tracking both, correct?
Correct.
So you're tracking late payments to,
Subs. Late payments to the prime typically don't happen because they can have a 60-day window. And when I say late payments, for us, that's the information coming over in the system. They have to provide
late payments to sub, that is for any material and workforce, or is it just material for the project overall?
just for the project over. I can't speak to workforce. We don't track workforce in our BAL office. Workforce development.
Okay.
Verify.
Okay. which would probably be a recommendation that we would make as a board for the tracking in the future, something to look at, not with the new fancy software. But I guess my next question is, with the tracking software that you have, does that include MMPS? No. They use a different software. Do we know which one they use?
I'm not sure what
Okay.
software they utilize, but we don't do procurement.
Yeah, I know that they have a separate procurement office, so I'm just curious to know if they had a similar software. Since we have a MOU that's being drafted by legal, director, if we could know their software and the background on that, I think that would be important as well. Thank you.
Jeremy.Fry at Nashville. Thank you all.
Okay. My name is, let me get that started. Okay. My name is Zach Kelly, and I work in the Division of Purchases, and I am going to skip through. You have a wonderful presentation in your packet, but I'm going to skip through about 2/3 of it, because as witty and charming as I am casually aware that I'm standing between you and dinner. And if not, you're standing between me and dinner. So that's even more dangerous for everyone here. But our contact information is in there. Dennis, of course, is my boss, and myself if you need to reach out to me. I'm going to skip through some of this. We buy stuff. I do want to touch on this slide as I'm going through, just to your question, council person a moment ago. We buy for the general government, which means that we buy for the 50-plus departments and agencies that make up the metropolitan government of Davidson County. That doesn't include the schools or WeGo or Nashville General Hospital, unless they ask us to do something like their headhunting firm, which we are doing. Doesn't include the Convention Center Authority or MDHA, and we have no statutory authority over those entities. We do occasionally use their contracts. Occasionally they will ask us to bid their contracts because we have a bigger volume set to deal with than they do, and we work closely with them, but we are not responsible for anything that they do. There are a number of slides here about who is in charge. And the council is on there. Council lady, you'll be happy to know that they're listed on there. And this gives you some information about there. But what I really want to talk to you about today, and the remit that I've kind of been given, is to talk to you about how procurement works. And the first thing for you to understand about procurement at Metro is that we are a centralized system. And that just means that all purchases in excess of $50,000 are effectuated through our office. For now, the thing that you really should just know about that is that a centralized system is the envy of most governments. Most governments really would prefer to have a centralized system. If you don't have a centralized system, then you have however many departments you have out there doing their own thing, and that is not a good situation for anybody. Because the first thing that a centralized system does is it reduces risk. For the centralized system, like I said, you don't have 50-plus departments and agencies out doing their own thing. You have one central group of professionals in our office who know the law, who know the regulations, who understand the market, and who know how to get you into a contract that meets your need and also serves the public good. A centralized system also leverages scale, obviously. With 50-plus departments and agencies, we buy about $2 billion worth of goods and services every year. That is a substantial amount of money. It's probably the biggest spend it's certainly the biggest spend that any public sector entity has in Tennessee outside of the state. But it would rival any private sector spend as well. And with that centralized system, we have insight into the needs of all those departments. So oftentimes we're able to bundle solicitations so that departments like general services, like water, like NDOT, that often have a lot of crossover, we're able to bid those things out in unison so that we're not waiting for one-offs. Finally, it saves time. I know that my colleagues in the department may not feel that way all the time, but it definitely does save time in the long run, because in a decentralized system, every department is out for themselves. If you have water that needs to repair a sidewalk and NDOT who needs to build one, in a decentralized system, you're going to have them both in the market competing. Whereas if you have a centralized system, you can have one contract, one sourcing event, and you can make sure that you are coordinating those projects. So I think the easiest way for you to understand how procurement works is just for me to go through a very quick example of it. If I could find my mouse on this page, I'd be so thrilled. There we go. It's for us just to go through an example of what that looks like. And in a centralized system, we have the department has a certain set of roles, and we have a certain set of roles. The short way to talk about that is the departments, like AVA, like General Services, and are there to tell us what they need. They are responsible for providing us with people like Trey who have subject matter expertise. They're also responsible for contract administration. And I think that is something important for us to understand here, that once we have sourced a contract, once we have effectuated it, that contract goes to the department for administration. So to some questions just a few minutes ago about payments, we don't manage payments. Payments are managed by the department. Payment Services could provide you some insight into that, but we have no insight into that once that leaves our office. What we are responsible for inside of the Division of Purchases is figuring out how to meet the need of the department in a timely and legal manner. We are responsible for soliciting the good or service. We are responsible for negotiating that contract, and we are in charge of effectuating its approval via legal, budgets, and any other statutory requirements that are there. But as I said before, that the easiest way to understand how procurement works is just to go briefly through an example of that. And I do, in advance, view all presentations that I'm compelled to give at Metro as an opportunity to share pictures of my dogs, because who else would I share them with? And to that end, I would like to introduce you to my good friend here, Phoebe H., aka Good Dog Phoebe. Phoebe, in this scenario, works for the Department of Dog Services. And as a part of the East Bank deal, the city has decided it was a poor idea to tear down the old Titan Stadium. And so instead, they're going to install a big tarp over it and turn it into an indoor dog run, which, if the council is listening, I think would be an excellent idea to have an indoor dog run in the city. But the Department of Dog Services, in this scenario, is responsible for outfitting the interior of the new dog run. And as their in-house expert on treats, the department head has asked Phoebe to take on the task of procuring treat dispensers and associated services to be placed at pre-assigned locations throughout the dog run. So what happens? How does this start? It starts with the department to let us know what they need, in this case, treat dispensers and associated services. The department has to submit a requisition. The requisition sets out their requirements and their parameters, which in this case broadly include the scope, what they actually need. Here they need not just dispensers, but also treats and restocking services, because in point of fact, they don't have thumbs and they can't do that themselves. It includes their technical requirements. In this case, a technical requirement would be that they have to be treats for dogs and dogs only, no cat treats. It also has to be a real treat, something like peanut butter or a chicken nugget or a French fry from McDonald's or Whataburger, not a celery stick or a carrot stick, which you might thumb your nose at. It includes a contract term, a la how long are you going to need this service. In Metro, our standard contract term is 60 months. If I'm going to go beyond 60 months, then I have to schlep myself down to the council and ask Councilmember Sepulveda and her colleagues to let me go beyond 60 months, which is a rarity for us to do that. It also includes the budget. In this case, the budget would be something around $2 billion because there's one thing we're not going to skimp on in this government, it's dog treats. So once Phoebe and the Department of Dog Services have completed that requisition, they will submit it to our office for processing. We'll assign it to a buyer, who in this particular case is our friend Oliver. Oliver, aka Olipop, works for Metro as a buyer in the Division of Purchases. We pay him in treats and tennis balls, but that's beside the point. Oliver buys for several departments. Among them is the Department of Dog Services. Oliver's job, as you'll remember, as a buyer, is to take the department's requisition and turn it into a solicitation. You'll remember from earlier that a requisition is the document that the department uses to tell us what they're looking to buy, and a solicitation is the document that we use to tell the market what we're looking to put on contract. Something you should understand is that building a solicitation takes time, as you'll see here in just a moment, because it is an effort that is not exclusively led by our office, but one that is instead a joint effort involving multiple people across multiple Metro entities. The first entity would be Phoebe and the Department of Dog Services. Throughout the process of building this solicitation, Oliver is going to work hand in glove with Phoebe to get any supplemental information that he needs and to lean on her subject matter expertise. Oliver's going to work with our friends at Metro Legal to decide about insurance requirements and to consult about any risk management concerns that come along with this solicitation. He's going to work with ITS if there are or may potentially be any technical risk or cybersecurity risk or concerns, which there are with almost anything that we buy in the year of our Lord 2025. He's going to work with the BAO, who you heard from just a moment ago, to set subcontracting goals for minority-owned, women-owned, and small businesses. These goals are not arbitrary, as my colleagues talked about. They're based on market availability. So it takes our data team time to understand the departmental need, to evaluate that relative to the market, and to set goals that are realistic and easily defensible. And when all this is done, Oliver will have the solicitation in a draft form, and that will be ready for approval. Approval is a joint process. First, Oliver will send that draft to the department to get their sign-off, and once they sign off, that draft will come back to the Division of Purchases for management approval. After management approves the draft, the solicitation is published. Once the solicitation is published, for almost every solicitation we have, it will be, well, for every solicitation we have, it'll be in the market for a minimum of 14 days. 14 days is a statutory minimum. Most solicitations, especially for construction or more complex projects, are probably going to need the market closer to 20 or 30 days, especially if there are a lot of elements of subcontracting involved there. While the solicitation is in the market, there will always be a pre-offer meeting at which potential suppliers can come and ask questions about the solicitation. There will also be a deadline for potential bidders to submit questions about the solicitation. And those written questions are given back to the department to answer. Those answers are then returned to us, and we publish them as an amendment or an addendum to the solicitation. And that is a time-consuming and tedious process, but we do it that way because you want to make sure that everybody who is potentially offering on a solicitation has the same information. That's why we don't answer questions via one-off in emails. We answer them, we set a deadline, and we answer them via amendment so that everybody is bidding on a level playing field. At least a week after the amendment is published, the solicitation will close. Oliver, the buyer, will review the offers, make sure that they conform to the legal aspects of the solicitation, and then he will provide them to the evaluation committee for review. The evaluation committee is made up of subject matter experts. There's a common misconception that we in purchasing make decisions about who we're going to award contracts to, and we do not do that. We rely on the subject matter experts who work in the department to advise us on the offers as they are received. Evaluators are recommended by the department. They are then appointed by the purchasing agent. And as I mentioned before, they can't be just anyone. They have to be someone with subject matter expertise. In this case, from left to right, you will have Fluffy, the engineer from DDS. She's in charge of part design. So her input about what is and is not possible replacement of these dispensers is necessary for the evaluation of offers. You have Rex, who is the DDS dietitian, and his input is necessary to make sure that not only are the treats tasty, but also they meet the city's guidelines for healthy consumption. We have Snowball after that, who is the activities director at DDS. She is in charge of programs at all DDS sites, so her input and her evaluation is an important element of the solicitation. And finally, we have Phoebe, who is, of course, the project manager. Together, these 4 evaluators will jointly review the offers and provide their feedback to Oliver. At Metro, evaluators don't score projects on their own. We don't use score sheets where people assign scores on their own. Instead, we use a process called consensus scoring. And what that means is basically they score in a group. This enables evaluators to speak freely and also to take into consideration the perspective of their colleagues. It also allows our buyers to make sure that the evaluators are following the rules and the guidelines set out in the law, the regulations, and the solicitation. I have another note in here about how long it takes to schedule an evaluation committee, but that is from when we were shilling in front of our friends at Metro Council for additional headcount, which we got, and we're extraordinarily grateful for. Thank you. Once that evaluation is complete, Oliver then takes the evaluator's feedback and he formats it into a justification for the award. Awards in Metro for RFPs are not awarded on the basis of just the low bidder. They are awarded to the offer that is most advantageous to Metro. When we're evaluating something like a construction project, not A&E, but construction itself, obviously on A&E you can't collect cost during a solicitation. But for construction, you're gonna look at about 40 points. About 40% of the total is gonna be cost. The remaining 60 points will be split between qualifications and experience, methodology, project approach, whatever mechanism is most appropriate to evaluate that, but it's not a pure cost situation. You might think that you were done after you made the award, but not in government. After the award is announced, there is a 10-day waiting period during which non-awarded suppliers can protest the award. This is rare, but it does tend to happen in fits and bursts, and it is an option available to suppliers under the Metro Code. And during that 10-day period, we are prohibited from proceeding with an award or contract negotiations. Once the protest period ends, then we can begin contract negotiations. That is led by the buyer, but again here, that is a group effort. The buyer will initially put together Metro's contract along with all of our standard associated terms and conditions, and they will provide that to the supplier for a review. The supplier will complete their initial review. They'll give us their red lines, and those red lines will initiate Metro's first review, where the department will review it and provide feedback, legal will review it and provide feedback, and then the buyer will provide Metro's review and comments back to the supplier. And if, in an ideal world, the supplier then agrees with all of the comments that everyone makes, then the process is done. It stops there, and we can finish with the contract. But I would tell you that is exceedingly rare. More often than not, our suppliers engage in multiple rounds of reviews and red lines and back and forth, which may include everything from verbal interrogatories to face-to-face meetings to hash out differences. And there's nothing wrong with that. That is entirely appropriate. That is a function of how business works. But throughout all of this, our team are acting kind of as traffic cops, coordinating between the various parties. Now, once the buyer gets everyone to sing Kumbaya, then we move on to contract effectuation. Contract effectuation is just a fancy way of saying that we get things reviewed and signed. This does require more coordination on Oliver's part, because now that the supplier and legal and the department subject matter experts are all on the same page, it's time to bring in the higher-ups. It's time to bring in OMB. So they can make sure that whatever we're buying, we actually have the money for, and we aren't obligating ourselves to something we don't have. Even though legal and risk management have reviewed it once, they're going to review it a final time to make sure that everything, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. Dennis, in this case, has not seen it yet, and so he will have the opportunity at that point to review it and provide his ultimate feedback and sign off on it. The same thing for the department head. The department head hasn't seen it at this point, and so this is their opportunity to give input and review. The finance director is also going to give it a once-over and affix her signature to it before it goes to the supplier, who is going to have their own set of reviews that it's going to have to go to. And only then, after all of that, do Phoebe and Oliver both get to go to the dog run and enjoy the fruits of their labor. So that is a very high-level view of how the process works, and there are two other things that I want to point out before I sit down and or take questions. One is that we do have a list of suspended and debarred persons. Several years ago, a council member brought forward legislation to create a list of suspended and debarred persons. We do not have anybody on it currently. The only person who is on it has recently come off of it. And sometimes people will say, well, what good is a list if nobody is on it? And my response to that is that somebody not being on it is actually a good thing for us. That's a sign of good contract management practices on behalf of our departments. But there are, if you go into the code, there are a number of reasons that you can go on there. I want to point out that putting someone on a suspended and debarred list is the only way to keep them from bidding on and winning a contract, and we can't just do that arbitrarily. They have to have committed and or have been convicted of some actual wrongdoing before we can put that on there. We often are asked about putting bad actors on there, and the response that I give is that bad actors is not a legal term that I can define and that I can suspend or debar someone for. So keep that in mind. We also do have a way to report waste, fraud, and abuse relative to all procurement activity that is managed by the Office of Internal Audit, and that link is there. It's very easy to go in and make a report there about you could make a report about a job site, you could make a report about a contract payment, and that will initially go to internal audit for review, and then if it meets their standard for escalation, then they would, of course, forward that to the purchasing agent. Again, our contact information is in your packet. You can feel free to reach out to us anytime, and generally we'll get back to you within 24 hours. But if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Got a question. The suspended and debarred persons, you're saying person, but not like business, right? So is that the
Yes.
owner of the business?
Yeah, it's so, this is where I wish we had somebody on there because then I could show you. But essentially when you would debar both of them. There were two entities that were on the list fairly recently, and the way that the suspension and debarment letter read was that John Doe and John Doe's firm.
Okay.
And we do that because if you debarred the individual, that wouldn't necessarily preclude the business.
Right.
And if you debarred the business, that wouldn't preclude them from going out and starting another entity.
Exactly.
So we have to debar both of them, essentially.
Awesome. So there's something in the legal code that defines who should be suspended and debarred, right? Can we get a copy of that, Trey? Okay, cool.
That'd be part of what I copy on our qualifications, little fact sheet back there. I'll pull that out of the ordinance and put that in.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation. My question is, does it go as far as when you're looking at who should be suspended or debarred, looking at the subcontractors that they potentially would be using?
No, because I think the advice that we have received is that our Metro's relationship is with the prime contractor, and we are preempted to a certain extent under state law to what we can consider. So we could not debar someone for use of a specific subcontractor. If there were a subcontractor who were on our suspended or debarred list, or a contractor who was on our suspended or debarred list and they wanted to perform as a sub, they could not do that. They would be prohibited because they would still be they would be working on a Metro project. And being suspended or debarred is not just being awarded, it is working on a Metro contract.
Okay. And then how does someone work their way off of the list?
The maximum term, I can't remember if it's state or local law, that we can suspend you for a period of 6 months. We can only debar you for up to 3 years. And so you sit there and wait out your time.
So the clock.
The clock.
Got it.
Okay, thank you all.
Okay. Jay, how can I cancel this next one? I don't know why it does that. Anyway, okay. Okay, my name is Eva, and I manage the contracts for General Services Department in addition to the procurement activities from our end. Because according to what you just heard, we are the ones who initiate the request that we need service, a certain service. So we start by developing a scope of service, and we complete all the necessary documentation in order to hand over to our procurement department to solicit the responses from the vendors. So this is just a brief background. We, as General Services Department, we manage more than 100 plus buildings, and we are required to provide several services and every service to all our departments that we manage, or the other for all our we manage several buildings, so we are required to provide several services to them, and that requires several contracts, like basically speaking, indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contracts. Those contracts, basically speaking, provide any service and every service that might be requested in order to make sure that our buildings are being maintained, and we provide also construction services, design, construction, and architectural engineering services as well. So during the past 5 years, we had 271 active contracts and 112 solicitations, because each solicitation results in probably multiple awards. And we have currently 20 solicitations in process with procurement. And this is the KPI from procurement report. As shown in the KPI, we are the biggest user of the Department of Procurement. So we're making them busy actually the whole time. So this is our solicitation process. First, we start by the project identification, what exactly we need. And then we start putting together the scope that describes exactly all details that we might need to put in any of the documents that we provide. And then we develop the evaluation criteria and also think about the exhibit price, how much or what exactly we want to see, or what we are going to request the vendor to price for any service that we might need. And also we develop the ABO goal from our end. We look at the scope and then start looking at each component. If it needs paving, for instance, we look at the commodity code for that service, and then we start elaborating on how much we're going to need for paving, for instance. And then once we complete all the necessary documentation, we submit to procurement, in a form of requisition. And then we start coordinating with the assigned buyer once a procurement department assign a buyer for us. And then we work together for drafting the RFP, publishing, responding to online discussion question, evaluations, and then the intent to award and participate in the contract negotiation. And then we coordinate drafting the resulting contracts and the final review of the contract. And then once we get the contract, now it's ours. We manage the contract once we receive this contract. We also utilize the sole source procurement services, which is basically speaking, if we are in need for a software, like the safety reports, for instance, this is a sole source provider. So we follow the correct procurement process, and we submit a request to procurement department, explaining to them that this service is being offered by a single supplier, and we provide necessary documentation in order to justify our request. Also, we utilize the emergency procurement, which is part of the procurement process. In case if we have any emergency that would be considered a threat to public safety, public welfare, health concerns, or functioning of metro government. And we also utilize our delegated purchasing authority, and only recently procurement, they decided to increase our delegated purchasing authority. So up to 5,000, we can only get one quote and then proceed with the PO. From 5,000 up to 50,000, we can obtain 3 quotes and then issue the purchase order. Any service above 50,000, we have to solicit proposals through the Department of Procurement. Now, for contracts management, we count mainly on goods and service contracts, construction contracts, design build contracts, construction manager at risk, architectural and engineering services. So I heard earlier you were talking about construction. So in terms of construction contracts, we have all types of construction contracts. Like I have a contract for construction to repair windows. That's a construction contract. Sometimes there is a project, simple project, that would be like a couple $100. And sometimes it's a big project. If we're asking the vendor to replace all the windows in the whole building, that could be up to like 400,000. So that's a type of construction project. And because the contract is indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity, so it can be utilized by all metro agencies. Basically speaking, the contract is ours. We are the owners of the contract, but the contract can be utilized by any metro agency. And this would be considered a construction contract. So once we receive the contract, we hold a meeting. This is our kickoff meeting in order to just meet with the vendor and explain to them what they should expect under this contract and what we expect from them. And we also provide some sort of service authorization. This is only provided by General Services. We have this internal process. Like whenever we have any project, we are keen to develop some kind of certain service authorization. It's a template that we elaborated on internally in General Services in order to just provide what exactly we are expecting from the vendor under this service authorization for this project, and what is the duration of this project, and what is the maximum value of this project. And we get this service authorization approved by the project manager, the assistant director, and the director of General Services, and then we process the purchase order in the system. We also review the trade packages submitted by the CMR vendor, and we prepare the purchase order authorization. This is also an internal process in General Services Department. When we receive the trade packages, we review in accordance with the contract terms. So we can make sure that the vendor solicited responses from other subcontractors, at least 3 of them, and provided their proposals. And also we review all our purchase order requests before we submit the requisition in the system. And we drafted the RFQs for procuring goods and services. And we also do budgeting for our operating services every year, and we monitor the expenditure. What we also do is that we are monitoring all our contracts in order to make sure that we have enough in the contract, since the majority of our contracts are being utilized by several metro departments. We always look in the system, make sure that I still have enough money in the contract, and then if we feel like there is probably some upcoming projects that might need additional funds in the contract, we initiate the process for amending the contract. And also, we review all invoices, payment applications, and we communicate with the vendors to correct inaccurate charges or anything that might occur in any invoice. We also regularly conduct like coordination meetings with the vendors, and we provide corrective action plan if the vendor needs some kind of like improvement in his performance. And we monitor the closeout documents for our projects. And during the past 5 years, we had no breach of contracts, and we haven't reported anything to procurement since we are able internally to handle all our issues with any of our contracts. Cooperative contracts, we also utilize some cooperatives, and this actually helps us a lot. We utilize like several cooperatives out there for any service that might be available for us and in accordance with our procurement regulations that we can utilize. Payment application requirements. So we receive payment applications from construction vendors or design build contractors or CMR utilizing AIA form. They have to provide unconditional waiver and release form from the main contractor and all subcontractors. They also have to provide continuation sheet that includes all the schedule of values that previously submitted and approved. And they need to provide contingency log, buyout saving log, and copies of all payment requests or billing from subcontractors. And if they have any stored material, we follow the contract terms by asking the vendor or subcontractor to always provide a certificate of insurance if the goods are being stored off-site. And the vendor needs to provide updated construction schedule. The majority of our vendors are net 30, which means if they submit the invoice or the payment application on the last day of the month, then they need to get paid by the following month within 30 days. That's our procurement regulations in accordance with the contract terms and in accordance with the registration of the vendor in the system. Some of our vendors are small entities like SBE or MBE. Those, they get paid within 15 days. So in terms of delays of payment, we make sure that all our vendors are getting paid within 30 days. That's the basic that we're doing with all our vendors. But sometimes things happen. Like for instance, if the vendor submitted a payment application that is not in compliance with the contract terms, we keep returning the payment application for correction until we receive the final correct payment application to process. So sometimes there is delays, yes, but we try not to delay any payment for our vendors. So this is a payment application process internally here in General Services. The contractor, the CMR, or the design build contractor, he submits the payment application. He submits the payment application to the owner's rep. The owner's rep is like project managers. They manage projects in coordination with the General Services Department. And then the owner's rep sends the same payment application to the A&E contractor, the architect, because the AIA form requires that the architect should certify the payment application. And then the owner's rep would submit the final payment application to us, contract management team. We do the final review in terms of contract compliance. And then if we have any issue or if we need any clarification or additional documentation, we circle back with the owner's rep or the main contractor or the A&E firm just to get some clarification or additional documents And then we compile the final payment application that we send to the PM, the project manager in general services, and the assistant director for review and approval. And then the payment application goes in the system for finance processing. The closeout documents. For each of our design-build projects, we require that before we release the final payment for the vendor, that there are certain lists of documents that we need to receive before we can release a final payment. The punch list items, the substantial completion certificate, the final acceptance within 30 days of the substantial completion, the warranties, the manuals, training, commissioning report, lead, record drawings, and as-built, certificate of occupancy, attic stock, all applicable inspection certificates, permits, and a list of all subcontractors and any additional documents that we might request. And I think that's it. Thank you so much, and if you have any question, I will be more than happy to answer.
Just a comment from my side. I've been very fortunate that the largest department that we support is also really, really good at the procurement process. And so they've developed a lot of best practices. Ava, I've actually used in some of the process improvements that I'm trying to make within the area, have used her as a voice of customer. She and I talk probably weekly.
Yes.
There'll be something that, I'm interested in their process, but General Services is a benchmark within Metro of how they procure goods, and congratulations on that. I know you all are very proud of what you've developed, and I think there's a lot of other departments that we strongly encourage them to adopt the same type of processes that General Services has in place. So that's just a comment from my side, so thank you.
Thank you so much. Any question for me? Okay. Thank you.
Back on the agenda, again, I appreciate all the folks with the presentations this evening. New business out there, unless any of the board members have anything that we need to address. Again, looking for Tosher possible presentation for our October 21st meeting upcoming. And I'll get these meeting minutes distributed here too by the end of the week, so we can get those on our agendas for that meeting as well, so we can get some of that stuff adopted, as well as the bylaws back to legal with their comments. But any other new stuff we need to add? Councilmember Sandra?
Thank you, Director. Can we just touch base with some of our other committee members, just to see if they wish to continue on the board for?
Yes, and again, it's been unfortunate for this evening with a couple absentees. I do want to emphasize to the board members and to those that aren't here too. Again, I know everybody's busy. We've got other jobs, and this is a volunteer role, but it's an important role, and just want to stress that, we value your participation and things of that nature, and we will reach out to the team again and re-up their commitment, if that's the right word, to see where people stand on it. If we do need to make a change, there's processes in place to do that, and we can address that pretty quickly, and I will like to address that here by the end of the week. Others? Again, then motion to adjourn. Next meeting again, October 21st, and agenda's already being drafted.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.